We are going to come to the final discussion. So I invite Geoffrey Bruno and Patrick Piton to come on the stage. So are you ready for the questions? I have one first question to Patrick Piton, because you are just coming back. So what do you think about Kleros that has just been presented? I don't know if you knew already this BDR or this kind of dispute resolution mechanism, but what do you think you know very well the esports industry, so do you think that it would be a good mechanism? Would it be adopted by the community? It brings speed. It comes with efficiency, low costs, but there is a gambling aspect, and people do not rule on the basis of legal rules, but on the basis of what they think that the other people are going to rule. So what do you think of that?
So before answering this question, I will have one question for you just to understand correctly and perfectly the system. My only question would be, how do you ensure that there is no conflict of interest when the jurors are selected? Because one issue I would see is you are the spectator, you are for team 2 or team whatever, just like for the VAR video we saw, if I'm for one team I would definitely say, oh, it's penalty, red card, whatever you want, and if I'm for the other team. Yeah. And if in the end the jurors that are selected are not independent, I'm not sure of whether the decision would be correct, if we can say correct.
That's a very good question. Of course, in this presentation, I didn't have time to go in deep into the mechanics because it would have taken too long. There is like an appeal system. So there is, in principle, anyone can be a juror. They are anonymous, so no one can check that you are not one of the parties. Okay, but so you can start the case with 3 jurors. And then if one of the parties, let's say the losing party, thinks there was like some conflict of interest and they lost unfairly because the court was attacked, they can appeal. There's going to be now twice as many jurors plus 1. So you go from 3 to 7. And then if there is also another, suspicion that there was a, kind of another attack because they had 4 of the 7 jurors in their pocket, they can appeal again to 15 and 31, 63, all the way to 511. So it's very hard to keep attacking even if you are like, and then as you get drawing more jurors, it's harder for the attacker, who is one of the parties in hiding, to keep having the majority, because you draw, it's harder to have to keep being selected and bribing more than 200 people, let's say. Right? So this is a very sophisticated game theory system. There are lots of videos of me explaining exactly how this works. I don't want to go into details, but all of this appeal system makes it that even in the situation where there is no possibility to check that there is no actually conflict of interest, still the system produces the right results. Okay, and you have to, also check this and understand this in the context of the type of cases that Kleros is resolving. This is not going to be used for traditional, in a court for criminal cases, but in the context of a need of having fast systems of the resolution. So that's where it makes sense, because it's very cheap, very fast. Okay.
So now we are going to have the lawyer answer.
Yeah. No, to answer that question, maybe it's more of a personal opinion, but sometimes I'm not convinced that the majority has the correct decision, but it's my personal opinion. And some cases I saw, even from some cases or sports cases before the cast, that the case requires a tough decision sometimes. And if you need the guts to say that this is wrong or this is right, and I'm not sure that juror or people who are not maybe that specialized or anonymous people will always have the right decision and issue then a correct decision. But that's a personal opinion.
But there is an answer to this. When you use this system, at the end, what you create is the jurors are rewarded not because they are coherent with the other 2 guys in the round. They are rewarded based on their coherence with the last round that could potentially decide on the issue after a number of appeals that takes it to the Supreme Court, if you want, right? So if you are a juror in the first round, you need to think, what would the community of jurors of this community of practice of Counter-Strike gamers or whatever game think about this case, right? So it makes jurors try to empathize with the full community and try to think what they would decide in that case. So if there is a bias in the whole community about something, that would bias, cleros jurors as well. But that's also kind of the same that happens in traditional systems. There is a society-level bias. Jurors or judges that participate in that society will probably have that bias.
So, thank you.
I always get this type of question, yeah.
Yes, it was. So, Pietro Ortolani, as a law professor, do you think that cleros meets the requirements of fair justice? And what do you think? Would it be more important to have a fair decision or speed and low-cost decision that gives a solution to the dispute?
Also a very difficult question, but my takeaway points for everybody is in dispute resolution, one size does not fit all. So when we devise procedures and when we practice in particular, we often tend to focus on the elite disputes, on big values in dispute, on cases where the underlying economic incentives are such that you can go all the way to a judge or to international arbitration. And there you also can afford this ideal level of due process. Now, there's a galaxy of smaller disputes that are worth sometimes tens or hundreds of euros, where all of the available procedures are simply not viable. And I think that's what Federico is targeting with this idea, right? So if we transpose that to the specific field of of eSports, is this jury system, which is not based on legal expertise, suitable to decide a very expensive, very valuable dispute concerning, for example, licensing of a game for an international World Cup of a certain video game? Probably not, but those are cases that can be dealt with, for example, a viable modern online arbitration that leads to an award enforceable under the New York Convention. However, in such a nascent new ecosystem like esports, we also have probably a lot of amateur disputes that are not viable for that type of arbitration. And that's where I think we could live with a lower level of traditionally conceptualized due process. Not only in esports, but in sports in general. I used to go see my friends play football in amateur contexts, and dispute resolution there, if you left the field with all of your bones in one piece, you were happy. So something like that is a significant step in the right direction, I think. Mindful of the fact that it cannot be used for everything, of course. One size will never fit all in dispute resolution.
Yes, I do agree, definitely. So, Geoffrey Bruno, given that we don't have a body of substantive law yet in esports, do you think that it would be better to resolve disputes in this field before state courts or with an ODR? And what kind of ODR would you suggest? We heard different models today, so what would be your preference?
I think we have to distinguish between different kind of disputes. As you can see, Federico, there's disputes which need to be resolved very, very fast. And for that kind of dispute, I think your system is good. But when there's commercial disputes, remuneration disputes, prize money disputes, an alternative resolution mode is also good. Why not a court, a judge court? On time again, I don't know. And I don't know, because I think the main problem is the definition of eSport, is the structuration of eSport. Now we don't know what is the structure. Do we need a federation? Is it a sport? Not. It's not a sport. What is this? And it's the lawyer with the talking without qualification. I don't know what rules we have to apply, and I think it will be more clear when we were able to give a definition to eSport. For example, in France, we have a definition, video game competition, the definition, and it's not eSport. It was very clear in France. And when Patrick presented the definition of eSports in Switzerland, it looks like the same. So someone is telling about video game competition. You eSports, it's the same but different words. So first of all, we have to qualify, and after we can choose a model of resolution.
So we always come back to the question of qualification. Yes.
I think it's the main problem.
Yes, I think it's the main problem, definitely. So maybe, Patrick, I'm going to ask you an easier question. So Leonid I can't say his name, I'm sorry. Leonid Shmetenko said that we should maybe create centralized dispute resolution body. And I think he suggested that in particular for settling price money disputes. So what do you think? Would it be a good idea in this field for disputes arising from violations of league rules, regulations, and code of conduct? Would it be a good idea to have a centralized body which would rule on all these kinds of disputes, so that we could maybe have more transparency and jurisprudence that we could refer to? Or even in this field, it would not be such a good idea?
As you know, I'm a bit biased because I come from the sports law field, so we have a centralized court. And Pietro was talking about the chef sauce, and I'm a bit biased because I like the idea of having a chef sauce, taking what we have today in the traditional sports, maybe taking out what is bad and put a great cream of digitalization in it. No, I like the idea of having a centralized thing, because a lot of questions are, even if the games are different, the questions are the same. I'm not sure of everything, for example, having a ban for every game, because this would be maybe a bit too much, but this is all the legal question. But having something that is able to publish a decision, so you know what was already decided. The same idea of having a list of arbitrators who are competent to deal on this question, just like WIPO is doing, because currently, as Madalena said, I'm not sure who the Bahrain Esports Federation nominated in the CAS case they have, but I don't see many people qualified. So having a centralized dispute resolution system, backed or not by publishers, this is another question, but something that is centralized and is able to, for every league, or at least most of the leagues, be able to issue decisions that are complied with, that are coherent as well. For me, it's one of the best solutions, but I understand that some people don't like the chef sauce.
And well, Madalena's mentioned something very important. I think that she said that it would be important to know who the arbitrators are. And she's referring clearly to classical arbitration. So what do you think? It's a question to all of you. Do you think that it's very important that we know the names of the arbitrators, who they are, what are their qualifications, or could we think that dispute resolution system with anonymous or pseudonymous arbitrators or jurors could be a good solution? And I think that Federico has an
You're
idea about it.
looking at me. I mean, I think it depends. I think it depends. As Pedro said, no one fits all. So and it depends on what you compare Kleros with. If you compare Kleros with ICC arbitration, of course, I mean, Kleros seems, not comply with the number of ideas we have about arbitration. You have to know who arbitrators are, etc. Now, lots of the disputes that exist in the online world are like invisible to traditional dispute resolution because they happen inside of platforms. Like, for example, when Counter-Strike, Valve, Overwatch system make a decision and bans a cheater, they made a dispute resolution decision in a black box without actually explaining what was the process that was used. And they really affected the rights of the player that was banned because the guy now lost his money, lost his ability to play, whatever, his reputation. So is Kleros better than that? Kleros is better than that. Compare Kleros to dispute resolution in like a social media platform. And tomorrow we're going to speak at length. But Twitter or Instagram or they make decisions about content moderation, which could end with a user being demonetized because of allegedly breaking, plagiarizing, whatever. Those people are having a money loss that is being done by a platform in a black box kind of process, and they don't know who the employee of the company was that made the decision. They don't know who the moderator of Facebook expelled them from the... So Kleros is better than that, and I would argue that we would prefer Kleros to those black box systems. But Kleros is not going to replace arbitration for licensing for millions of dollars type of things. Just it's a tool for a type of disputes that is not going to work for others.
Yes, perhaps I can add. I think we've been talking about different type of disputes, so there's room for everybody. I think there's room for all kinds of alternatives, of ideas, and as Federico was just saying, for certain types of disputes, you need something fast, you need something that is very affordable, and this is what we can see now in recent European legislation. If we look at the Digital Services Act, or if we look at the directive on the digital single market, that they refer to out-of-court dispute resolution mechanisms to deal with whatever, for example, a platform decided. So you have first an algorithm that will decide, for example, if someone uploading a content is violating someone else's copyright. So the algorithm will automatically detect that. The algorithm might not be able to analyze the context, so you may need a human to review that, so there might be a human review, and then you have the option to go to an out-of-court dispute resolution mechanism, and you can still even have the chance to go to the courts. So this system of layers, I think, gives the opportunity to different mechanisms for different kind of disputes to be present and to play a role. And I think from our discussion, what for me is quite clear is that we are talking about the big disputes, and there maybe I will agree with Patrick about the chef sauce, and thinking of, okay, we know that this mechanism work, we know that the capable people that are trained in arbitration there are arbitrators that are good and they know, and they will ensure to have an award that is enforceable. So if you're looking for that, you should be able to have that. But if you're also looking for a clearer solution, and especially when Federico was talking about something that is very, very time sensitive, that needs to be resolved very quickly. I talked about the example of Palexpo before, and this is something that works because it's fast and it has to be resolved in 24 hours. So there you cannot expect to have a very lengthy decision. You cannot expect to have 100 pages award. But what you need your strategies to get this decision out quickly. So I think, in a nutshell, we could say that there are different options for the different type of disputes. So maybe defining the dispute will help us to determine this mechanism could work for this type of issues, this other one could work for this other type of issues.
Yes, since we started drifting towards tomorrow's topic, I think that the comparison with content moderation on social media is illuminating. Because those are disputes that sometimes have actually a very significant economic value and human value for the parties involved. And up until now, in Europe, now it'll change with the Digital Services Act, but still, outside of the European Union, you don't know if that decision was made by a machine or by a human. You definitely don't know the name of that human. You don't know if that human is a moderator outsourced to make a decision in 15 seconds or a member of the oversight board that's the next judge of the European Court of Human Rights. Sometimes you don't know that the measure was taken. Shadow ban is a prevailing practice on many platforms, and that means that all of a sudden you lose your livelihood as a content creator, and the platform won't even acknowledge that they actually deprioritized your profile compared to other profiles. So because there is a huge access to justice gap, I think, in all of those sectors, it is our duty to think, are there new ingredients to add to the sauce? Not to throw away the nice, tasty stuff we always had, but if there's a new spice that gives me a first assessment of the dispute within 30 minutes, and then we can add other dispute resolution mechanisms that are more traditional later on in a matter of 1 week, and then 3 months, and then maybe a year. Then we can, in my opinion, enrich this dispute resolution landscape, which is far from perfect at the moment.
Yes, definitely. You are right. Does any of you know cases when in eSports there are some automatic decisions taken by algorithm? Are there already cases like that? I don't know, but maybe there are.
In esports, I'm not sure, but for example, in social media, most of spam removing decisions are just automated. What we think is going to happen, there's going to be like a division in different, like 3 main segments. For the most objective and simpler types of disputes, AI will be used. It's more efficient, it's better, faster. Then for still smaller claims, but slightly more complex because of the need of understanding the context or interpretation, Kleros or decentralized justice systems. And then for more complex disputes involving more higher value or where you need legal interpretation, that's where still, it's going to work like current arbitration, more or less.
Well, during a game, could we imagine that an algorithm would take a decision, automatic decision, because someone is cheating or something like that?
You already have some things like, I don't know specifically in tournaments, but if you play a ranked match in one of the games, usually there are some programs who are going to check if you use some wall hacks or some mods you're not allowed to use. The most clear case are also the cases where you use bad words in the chat or things like that. You're going to have a kind of an automatic ban for at least some point. So some point. But for other stuff, yes. In tournaments, I don't know to which extent they have an automatic decision. But currently, in ranked match in some games, yes, you have some programs in place.
I think it will be interesting to see how AI evolves, right, in this area also. So maybe next year we can have our conference on AI and esports.
Also, I mean,
yes.
what we see is that even in cases where AI resolves the dispute, there still needs to be like a potential review process made by humans to overturn the AI decision. So that's likely to happen.
Yes, that's a requirement from the EU. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, no, I have a question I'm very naive because I don't play FIFA or any soccer sports, but there's a referee there, right? So there's a form of AI that makes a call if something is a penalty or is not a penalty. And how it does it is proprietary information of the developer, of course, so it's not something we have transparency about. Couldn't there be a dispute about that?
Just a personal case. With algorithm, I was playing Rocket League, and I stopped to play. I let the car here 30 seconds. I've been banned for 10 minutes automatically. It's bad. It's bad. But that's why the DSA exists today. You say the shadow ban. There's a rule which oblige the editors to notify the ban. Yeah, it's a very good rule. Yeah.
You didn't have any recourse against the ban? No time for the recourse, maybe.
No time. 10 minutes. It was too fast.
Just a time for a coffee, and then you were
Exactly.
back.
Exactly.
And to answer your question, Pietro, I would say it's just like in traditional sport. You don't have any recourse against what the referee says because you cannot. So probably that's exactly what they are going to do in EAFC or FIFA. You cannot say anything on what the referee said on the field of play. It's the traditional rule of no appeal of a field of play decision.
I mean, but the VAR kind of goes in that direction, right?
In tennis, you can call, right?
In the end, the referee decides.
You have a few, yeah, but you can.
Still a field of play decision in which you cannot appeal. Same as
Right.
the teammates cannot say, please go see the VAR. It's not their decision. You cannot appeal the referee's decision. It's the traditional rule that is applied in traditional sports. I think that's also a good a good component of the sauce that should be taken in the eSport. It's a human decision, yeah.
Okay, does anyone in the audience wants to ask a question, share his or her experience, or online? Do we have any question online? Question here? Do we have something online? Okay, so first the question in the audience and then online.
A question to Leandro and Federico. Leandro, you talked about on-call, basically on-call arbitrators, or there my question is, are these just like employees of WIPO that are just there in the office, or how are they on call? How are they remunerated for? How do you ensure that there's always someone that can act within like 5 minutes to make a decision?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so what we do is this is a case of the trade fairs, right? The one that I was explaining. So it's for a specific event. So let's say the trade fair lasts for 2 weeks. So we have selected a group of experts. In this case, it's happening in Geneva. So there's Swiss lawyers have expertise in Geneva law, and they also have expertise in IP law. So you have like trademark, copyright lawyers. There's a panel, and there's a chairman. So whenever a dispute is filed, then the chairman will propose some of these candidates. They will have to also do a quick review on independence and impartiality. But they're external lawyers, the lawyers are practicing in private practice, that become part of the list of experts for that particular event. So every year we have a quite similar list. There might be a few more, a few less. And they ensure that they will be available, or they indicate their schedule when they will be available, and that's all in the database. So whenever a dispute comes, then you can quickly say, okay, this is a trademark case. We have these trademark lawyers in the panel, so let's try to appoint one of these experts for that particular case. So that's how the system works.
I understand the system for the specific event, but my question was more like, if you want to provide the same service like 365 days a year for the global esports disputes market, how are you going to?
Well, I think it's a bit ambitious to have like a system that is ongoing 365, let's say, and you have people available to issue a decision in 24 hours. But normally what happens in the cases is we receive the case, and then immediately we will be contacting candidates that meet the requirements. So the parties will indicate if it's an IT dispute and it's under, I don't know, English law, and the case will be in English, so you know in the database exactly which are the candidates that may be proposed. So you do a preliminary inquiry with them very quickly as soon as you get the case. But these are for the traditional mediation arbitration cases that won't be resolved immediately. In the case of eSports, we should, I think, differentiate whether it will be for a specific competition or if it will be more for the, let's say, ongoing activity for any kind of activity. Otherwise, I think it will be a bit difficult to have, decisions that are issued so quickly and 365. So normally, that's how we.
I mean, if you want something like that, you can call me, because I mean,
that was my follow-up questions. Like, how do you provide, if there is like a Counter-Strike tournament happening somewhere in Ouagadougou, and they have got an issue, like how do you ensure that there are enough jurors around right in that moment to decide on the case?
So that's one thing I think that we need to clarify, that these are consensual procedures, so you cannot force anyone to participate. In order to do that, let's say there's a competition and you register for the competition, then in the terms and conditions of the competition, there should be a reference that you accept to participate in any of dispute resolution system.
So the players are the jurors?
Yes,
at the same
the
time.
players will be the ones saying, I accept to be bound. Then you can have like a panel on standby for that particular competition when you know it's happening. If it's a normal competition that there is no indication, let's say no clause, then you cannot force anyone to participate. Both parties in the dispute should accept to go to. So then it's less likely that they will end up in a system like this. So what you need is to tie them somehow, and for that you need to have, for example, in the terms and conditions, specific references to I accept to be bound by, I don't know, a WIPO expert determination, for example, and that's the case. Otherwise, we cannot take the case, right? So we need, or we can take the case from one party and see if the other one wants to join, but you cannot force them. It's not like in court that you go to the court with jurisdiction, you start the case, and if the other party does not participate, well, it will be in default, and still the judgment will be applicable. In this case, for being a consensual system, you need everybody to be on board. That's I think, the difference.
Right? Yes, it's an opt-in system, so you have to choose to be judged like this. What you were suggesting is a very good point. I think you were thinking of the point that the jurors or the persons who are going to take any decision would be the players. That was your point, I think, or maybe you just suggested it. And
what I was imagining is that if you have
because it's very important that the community participates.
So if you do,
right?
if you do have a game of Counter-Strike somewhere, and you have 40 participants, that all of them basically are also jurors if there are suspicions of cheating, and because then you have people there that have been in the game, and then maybe the conglomerate of them would arrive at a decision, a majority decision, and then if the culprit would then appeal, then you maybe break it out to like the higher instance, or how do you provide these dispute resolutions?
So there is like a court called Counter-Strike Dispute Resolution that receives uniquely only cases coming from disputes, cheating disputes coming from Counter-Strike. And on that court, there are a bunch of people who are Counter-Strike dispute resolution experts, let's call them, that they are like all the time trying to resolve disputes because they make money for each dispute that they resolve correctly. They have some reward. So there is like a Counter-Strike game, Christmas, and there is a dispute, and this goes to that court automatically because players opt in to that when they accepted to play the game, and then this goes to this court, and the court draws jurors for the case, maybe 3, 5, or the number can change, and then and these people, well, they get a notification, hey, you have been chosen for the case in the Counter-Strike. Go to the case, you click there, you get the video, you see, okay, the people say that there was a cheating by this player. You have to see, you have to make the decision, you vote on your phone or your computer, and then when all of the people voted, there is a decision made by the majority, and then the reward, the money is distributed to those who voted coherently or incoherently, and it's non-stop, 24/7. It's like Bitcoin. You can send money at any time, New Year, Christmas, whatever. there's always people like on duty to be jurors, voluntarily because they make money by being jurors. And if there are games going on that send cases to that court, the system will work without stopping at any moment. How much money do they make? I mean, that depends. So for now, all of this game is an idea we have to develop, but I mean, so we don't know exactly what will be the parameters to use. Parameters, I mean, how much to pay juror per case. We calculate that by, I mean, how much effort is required to solve one of the cases. In the Overwatch system, it was like 10 minutes, I think they spent like something like that. How much these people make per hour, so to calculate what is the amount of money they would be willing to receive for working that time. In many cases, these are going to be other players. I mean, or some of them are going to be like even players who also study law because they are interested in understanding it. So it's not going to be very expensive. I can give you some estimates of disputes being solved by Kleros in consumer disputes for like fintech, that people have to decide the cases regarding a customer claiming that a credit card charged them for something they didn't want to buy, some like mistakes. It typically costs like a few $dozen per case, and this is going to go down as there are more cases because this is going to be there is going to be more juror supply, so this will take the cost down. It's really very cheap. It competes not with traditional arbitration; it competes more with AI, if you want. I mean, what is the cost of Kleros decision versus an AI decision? And the thing is that AI doesn't tell you why they make a decision. Jurors in Kleros, they do give you a justification. So users really want to see, I mean, parties, the losing party wants to see why they lost. And that's a very big advantage between, I mean, that Kleros has over AI, but both work 24/7 and both can do it very cheap, right?
I'm sorry, but we are running out of time.
We can speak later.
You can talk together. So we have one last question that we are going to take because it's very interesting about CAS, the role of CAS in this eSport dispute resolution. And that's a main question, I think. What could be the role of the CAS in this field? Is it going to be a role or no role at all? And maybe I could ask Leonid Shmatenko to give some insights, quick answer on this point. What would you think the CAS could play like a role? The person asking the question suggested that it would be maybe an appellate court. I'm not sure it would be the best idea, but maybe.
We have preliminarily inquired the CAS, whose official statement was more or less, our rules are perfect for any dispute. We do not think, and my colleagues might correct me if I'm wrong, that this might serve as an appellate court. And given the recent jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice regarding the monopoly, we would also think that any arbitral tribunal or any permanent arbitral tribunal for esports would give the parties at least the choice for the seat of the arbitration, so as to to avoid any jurisdiction of the ECJ contravening this. And if there will be any appeal, that would be as a normal arbitral proceedings, allowing to go with the New York Convention or the Lex Arbitra to the courts and annul the award according to the domestic laws, be it in Germany, Switzerland, or somewhere else in the world.
Yes, Patrick, would you like
if
to
I
add
may
something?
quickly, just to clarify 2 points, it's that, yes, if you look at the CAS code, the CAS could technically work in 2 ways. It can work as an ordinary, what is called the ordinary procedure, which means there is no decision beforehand and you just go there to ask them to issue a decision for your dispute. It can be a commercial dispute. We were speaking before about about Twitch, etc. But nowadays, today, CAS already does that with some federation who give the rights to some TV or some TV channel, and then they have a commercial dispute, it goes to the CAS. Then the other procedure they have is the appeal procedure. You have a decision given by a federation, by someone, whether tournament, whatever, and then you appeal this decision and it gives you an award. But in both cases, you have an award, and in both cases, you can go then to the Swiss Federal Supreme Court. Then I like the idea of the problem with esports is, should it be in Switzerland or not? Should you be able to choose the seat? Given the problem with the European Court of Justice, the idea of having a dispute resolution system centralized for esports, which is not the CAS but works kind of the same way, and where you can choose the seat, is a good idea. And we also talk a lot about the fact that we need a speedy procedure, we need a decision rather quickly, but the CAS already does that as well. I had cases where we had a problem with whether the player could play a match. We issued the appeal on Monday, the respondent issued the answer on Tuesday, we had the hearing on Thursday, and then decision on Friday, and the match was on Saturday. It can already go quickly. It only depends of the people, of the willingness of the people. So yes, it works. Not sure it's perfect and it's the perfect solution for esports. As Madalena said, it's super expensive. Internally, we call it the 44 rule because they always ask for 44,000 as an advance of cost, which is too much for esports team. So something cheaper, but it works well for traditional sports. So I understand there is some problems, but there is some good things about the CAS, and we shouldn't throw everything away. Just take the best part and add what has to be added in it. A chef sauce 2.0.
Thank you very much.